Hello, my name is Yesenia Serrano, and the topic of my project is street harassment. The research question that I settled on was, what messages does street harassment send to its victims? So let's begin. So first of all, let's get educated by the experts. So, an organization known as Stop Street Harassment, they say that this is a really complex and complicated concept to define, but they say it is unwanted comments, gestures, and actions forced on a stranger in a public place without their consent. And as you can see, I made a little symbol after that because this is where it gets gender based street harassment, because that harassment is directed at them because of their actual or perceived sex, gender expression, or sexual orientation. So I want to make clear right away that it is found harassment to be centered around wanting dominance and superiority over another person. And street harassment is deeply embedded into cultures, meaning that we often overlook it, and it derives from discrimination. There is intersectionality within the reasoning for harassment, so being that there is a lot of reasons for street harassment. An easy way to remember that is, for any reason someone can discriminate, they can harass too. And that leads us to the importance for this topic and its study is because it is believed that street harassment leads to further violence. And according to Stop Street Harassment, they say it is a human rights issue because it limits harassed persons' ability to be in public, especially women. We will definitely be addressing this into the presentation. I wanted to add the slide of examples of street harassment because I didn't want anyone to not be clear as to what street harassment is and looks like. And it's a spectrum, I think. I think it very much ranges from just staring to literally groping and sexual assault, and that is really sad. Another thing I want to make clear right away is that anyone can be a victim of street harassment, even gender-based street harassment. I understand that this is a women's studies class and this is a feminist research project, but it just didn't feel right to me to not include the other victims besides women that are important to the findings of this research. That being said, studies have found that women tend to be the main victim of street harassment. It is also extremely common phenomenon for people who identify as non-binary or queer. Men are not immune to street harassment either. The majority of the harassment that men report involves comments on sexual orientation and identity. So that brings me back to the queer community and the discrimination that many people sadly have for the queer community. And that leads to a lot of harassment. So to analyze some actual street harassment, I analyzed this video titled 10 Hours of Walking in New York City as a Woman. It was made in 2014. It is a video of a simply dressed woman silently walking down the streets, and it really depicts verbal harassment that many sadly experience on a daily basis. The video reported over 100 instances of verbal harassment within the 10 hours from ranges of different people. they did not include the gestures that she experienced. So what I got from this video is that most of the remarks did not really seem negative or so much rude, like, "What's up, beautiful? Have a good day." Most of the remarks seemed to be questions like, "How are you doing?" hoping for a response. I noticed a popular one was like, people would say, "The reason you're not talking to me is because I'm ugly, huh?" And I think that was like, you don't want to offend that person, so you have to respond. And then I noticed that a lot of the marks were attention grabbers like that, and outrageous things like, "Look, you found $1,000. Some remarks did have harsher undertones, like the ones telling her what to do, like telling her to smile, or right here it says, "You should say thank you more." Before that it said, "If someone gives you a compliment." But anyway, the most intimidating actions that I found were the continued following. Like the example above, that man followed her for over 5 minutes just silently. And to me, that's like the creepiest. That brings me to my next video that I analyzed, which is actually kind of made in response to the first video that I just analyzed, and it's called "Why Do Men Harass Women on the Street?" So Gothamists asked New Yorkers, "Why do women get harassed on the street?" And this is how they responded. They asked the same people and they had a conversation with them, and I kind of found their comments that they made on it and I analyzed them here. I know it's a big old jumble, but there's something interesting in it. In this slide here, I have kind of grouped the responses into like a message, and I divided them up by men and women responses. What I found interesting between these is that both shared the like specialty we have for our female loved ones. From the male perspective, their female loved ones were off limits for harassment, even though one of the youngest one acknowledged that if you're harassing a woman, it's inevitable. And from the women perspective, it was just that, like, how are these harassers not considerate? How are they not considering how they would feel if someone was harassing their female loved ones? And I put a little highlights of what I found in the responses. The top guy said it was his right, and I say, what gives you the right to harass people? Do I have to put up with this harassment to protect my First Amendment? The one below him, she brought up the fact that it's a collective of events, and it's kind of like that time when like you blow up because someone just said hello beautiful to you. And it's like, it's not that one instance, it's all the instances together is why you're blowing up. The man below her, I didn't even want to add him in it because he said that he didn't know it was a problem, that women got harassed on the street. And I'm just like, maybe you're not aware because you're the one doing it, or you're just ignoring it. I really like the last one because it addresses the intersectionality within street harassment. Her religion was not respected because she thought immunity would be applied because of her headscarf, but there is no immunity, there is no boundary. This brings me to some literature/theory review of my topic. I have Unsafe and Harassed in Public Spaces, a National Street Harassment Report by Stop Street Harassment, done in 2014. And what I got out of their survey findings is that street harassment is a common recurring phenomenon for many people. It has an impending possibility of escalation, and it is triggering for many people that have been through some harassment. It can be triggering, and it impacts the lives of harassed people. It leads to inequality of accessing public spaces and resources. And the street harassment symbolizes public space. So there's no boundaries or limitation because there's a lot of public space. Men are found to be the main harassers. That makes me ask why. And agency kicks in a lot during street harassment. Agency to me is like your ability to make a change, to impact your situation. And that is something really important when you're being harassed on the street. So I analyzed this article titled, "Do You Respond to Catcalling? 23 Women Reveal How They Reply to Street Harassment." It was made in 2015 by a news blog called Bustle. So first thing that stood out to me was this quote: "Harassers make sure that women feel like they are not entitled to walk around city streets or anywhere else without hearing unsolicited comments." So I analyzed their responses and I found these common theme that women shared. It all depended on their assessment of their level of threat, and that just really stood out to me. A very common type of response was ignoring it, avoiding it, deflecting it. A common wishful response was that a lot of women wish they could enlighten their harassers, like tell them, "Why are you doing this? You should not be doing this. You should stop doing this." So I analyzed another article by Bustle, and this one focuses on the coping mechanisms, so how they deal with street harassment. And like the very first thing is know your rights, because there are a lot of rights that can get you justice or at least help you get justice for your harassment. And I have a lot of links that I forgot to mention on these slides that hopefully I can show you guys links to everything because I think it's really valuable information. Anyway, so the coping mechanisms was a lot of venting, visualization therapy of not being in that harassed environment. Carry protection. Speak out about it. Let's tell our stories of harassment. Find a safe space. Try to gain control of your safety and agency. And avoid public areas. Now that's just sad. And that is why I was led to this path of resistance. I think just by the victims, we resist, and patterns within their experience with street harassment has led to a worldwide resistance/change effort. So I just wanted to point out a few of them. I've been speaking about Stop Street Harassment, and they are an organization dedicated to researching gender-based street harassment, identifying it as a human rights issue, and stopping it. We have another one called Hollaback, organization with the mission of ending all forms of harassment and creating a safe environment for all. That one's cool because it reminds me of a Gwen Stefani song. And then we also have a Twitter hashtag movement created by activist Feminista Jones that allows women to disclose personal experiences of street harassment. It acknowledges the suppression. The UOKSIS hashtag provides a genuine outlet for the voices of women of color to be heard. So with all this analysis and research, what messages does street harassment send to its victims? And what I got out was street harassment tells its victims that they are weaker, that they do not deserve respect, that they are not safe, and that there is no limits or boundaries to harassment. I want to state again that harassment stems from discrimination. How I have wrapped it up in my head is that a harasser is not viewing the harassee as a person. They are breaking up the intersectionality of the person and viewing them as categories, which are options and areas for discrimination and harassment. Before I am anything, I am a person, and all persons deserve respect and safety in public. so don't harass. I am not quite done yet. I wanted to leave y'all with some other relevant, interesting things I found. So, first of all, why do men harass in the workplace? Or why do they harass at all? And Susan Foley, I cannot say it right, I'm sorry. She said some men perceive the feminist drive for economic equality as a threat to their traditional role. Thus, sexual harassment is a form of violence perceived as self protection. These men are just trying to protect their traditional role. The photo that says the People's Girls is a movement in Egypt that is trying to stop street harassment. They have done some really interesting videos on there. I have some links for them. And that leads me to, hello, France having some street harassment laws. And it hasn't even been a year with it in play, but it says to have a lot of success. And the last thing that I found really important and interesting was that I think society's acceptance and view of street harassment has changed. Before, people would think catcalling is okay, it's complimentary, but now we have realized that it is harassment. We cannot just let it go. And I saw that Playboy did this flow chart to if you should catcall or not. And the only reasons you should catcall someone is if they are literally a cat or you have consent to do that to them. And that really opens my eyes that Playboy said that. I think we as a society have begun to look in the victim perspective and see that it is plain out harassment. And we have changed our opinion of it. We now think it's creepy to be catcalling across the street because in the end, it's harassment. So don't do it. Thank you for listening to my video, and here are my references. Have a great day.